Well, hello and welcome to the Balanced and Blissful Energies podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Elizabeth Hechavarria, and I'm very happy today to be introducing my guest, Paul Quinton. Paul is a channeler. He has multiple things that he does. He's a speaker, he's a writer, he's a teacher, a healer, and he's going to tell you more about himself. But today's conversation is going to be far-ranging, discussing topics of consciousness, evolution of consciousness, and where we are going with this new earth. So, without further ado, Paul, please introduce yourself.
Lovely to be on, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Paul Quinton. Currently live in the UK, just outside London. So I grew up in a psychic spiritual family, shall we say. So I was thrown in the deep end from a young age. I used to do Tuesday nights with some of the family members. We used to do seances where we'd help sort of stuck souls. So I was very much involved in the non-physical. And we used to have a lot of spirit in the house. Things would go missing. I'd see spirit. I do a lot of meditation, so it was very open. I was born into that world, and so for me, it was very natural. And obviously, having that in the family, it sort of assisted us to sort of, help with healing, and obviously getting information, but also really understanding how it sort of works from the non-physical as well. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of fear at the beginning because obviously you're seeing things, and as a young kid it was quite scary at times, but we sort of learned to navigate through that fear. And then I was a normal teenager. I had a normal life. I went in the military for 6 years, and I was traveling around the world for a couple of years. I lived in Australia for 15 years. I was in Asia for a while, and I came back to England probably about 2006. And I really started coming back to this sort of healing or energy work in 2001. So I've been about 24 years now of doing this work. Currently self-employed. I've taught many different clients from different ranges of different things. I've been trained in numerous modalities. But working with spirit has been definitely, and more so in the last 8 years, maybe 9 years, when I've really sort of honing in on this relationship with the non-physical, and sort of stripping back a lot of the new age hype, misinformation, understanding how healing really works, and really they sort of said, look, basically, don't work like this anymore. This is how you got to work. And so now I work in a very different way. And that's why I then sort of birthed the alignment modality, which is a 4-part modality, all in alignment with what they said. This is all their teaching. So I'm literally just a channel for this information. And it's a way to sort of navigate through the human drama, the human conditioning, and the misinformation. It goes on for a range of things. We work on a lot of shadow energy, our own denied, repressed trauma. We work on connecting with spirit. There's a lot of stuff around the cells, the atom, DNA. So it really covers a lot of topics. And then through that process of sort of birthing that sort of modality, I've created oracle cards. I've got my first book that I'm about to publish. And I've done I'm writing a few other workshops sort of complement the alignment modality. I've put e-learning workshops together as well, and sort of trying to find ways to sort of get out there to everyone, because everyone has different ways of wanting to learn. People want to do it on their own. They prefer videos, they prefer MP3. So I've sort of just creating this work through those sort of avenues. And it's been really interesting, it's been great. I mean, the greatest teacher is working with the non-physical, because obviously through all the chaos, and we're born in through the veil, so we don't have that information, and I've in some ways I was quite lucky because I had access to that information quite early, and I could trust it, and I could sort of talk to spirit, and so really sharing that, and helping people through this struggle, especially now, as the feminine energy is rebirthing itself, and it's quite tumultuous for everyone because everyone's shadow energy is coming up at the moment. It's on a macro micro level around the world as well at the moment. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. So I'll hand it back over to you, and we'll go to some questions.
Yeah. Well, I am curious that you, being raised in a family that was very, steeped in spirituality and speaking with spirit, and mediumship, I guess, if you were doing seances as well.
Correct.
How was your, like, did you have, I imagine you're human, so I imagine you went through, at least for now, you're part human.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
must have gone through struggle, through your own healing journey. Like, how has, like, crisis, or have you gone through any of those experiences that so many of us have gone through in our process of awakening? Or were you just always awake and you didn't really have to deal with it?
Well, for many years I was okay, because I would always trust spirit. But no, I've been through it. And also, what they said to me very, very clearly is that the new teachers for the new Earth consciousness they have to teach what they've gone through, because you have to resonate with people. So there's no point someone coming to you with all this trauma, and if you don't understand, you haven't been through it yourself. Because also, when your DNA, your cells change, your DNA changes, so it's a magnet for that energy. So everything's working magnetically. So you have to be authentic of your experience. So yes, I've been through it. I've been through all the trauma. I've been through, well, trauma, emotional trauma, deep abandonment issues. I had prostate cancer this year, went through that. Now that brought me back to a very ancient wound where, because all cancer is based on separation. So I had a wound in me that, and they didn't tell me for this, and I was meant to go through it at the beginning of this year, which is interesting, because I was asking, and they didn't give me information. And basically, deep within me, I have an abandonment wound with the masculine energy. So I've always felt abandoned by the father energy. And so this has caused me then to polarize into this life, into my feminine energy, more so, because I said as a soul when I came in, I couldn't live without love in this life. I couldn't live without that connection. And that intimacy was very, very important for me. And obviously all human beings anyway, but ultimately I haven't had that father figure for many lifetimes. So I've been living sort of, I suppose my male and female energies have been out of alignment. And what's happened then is my body has then said, well, if you're not going to integrate that masculine energy, you're going to deny it. We're going to switch off that energy. And that's what then triggered the prostate cancer. And so through this story, this is great for me, because ultimately it's something that I can now resonate with. So many men have got it, but also cancer, everyone's got it. Cancer's really, it's an emotional host. It comes from emotional energy. Yes, we got all this sort of information around the physicality of it, and 100%. But Spirit have said, the doctors have got so much fear around cancer that when you go to the doctor, it triggers the fear anymore. So there's all this fear has been poured in. But cancer's a messenger. And I always knew you should never fight cancer, because cancer is the greatest message the body can give you. And this wonderful spirit that a friend of mine channels in Australia, I talk to him sometimes directly. I also channel my own self, but he said, yeah, look, cancer and the doctors, it said it's a shame, because if people understood why they got it in the first place, you can really change that frequency, because it doesn't need to manifest. It's not a virus. It's not a bacteria. It's your body telling you something. And so everyone's really suffering with cancer at the moment, and it's tripled in this country. It's crazy. So I think it's the right time for me to sort of bring this information in, and sort of show ways of how you can sort of navigate through that process, without having to maybe go down the pharmaceutical route, because obviously and chemo, it's very hard on people, and it's quite sad, and it's painful to watch others really suffering with that. So if we can sort of give a message out where there's another way maybe to look at things as well. So that's been a journey, but I've triggered with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and it's really sort of debilitating, to the point
Yeah.
where I'm losing my breath. So I've felt those emotions, and I'm very grateful for that experience, because now I can understand other people as well. So no, I've definitely been through it, but I've also felt very protected around me. So I've always had that sort of trust there. So
Yeah,
so
that
maybe when things
helps.
happen for others, I go, actually no, I've got someone that can help me. Where others would be like, oh Jesus, what can I do?
Right. Yeah.
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 So that's been a
Yeah.
gift.
I just want to echo that, the cancer as a teacher, I've studied anthroposophic medicine, and from that perspective, we view all illnesses actually as beings in and of themselves, entering your life for a purpose. There has been some kind of contract with that illness in
Yeah,
order to help your soul's development. And
absolutely.
another aspect, this whole fear thing, and there's also fear so you mentioned like that there's other ways beyond chemotherapy and radiation, and I agree, but there can also be the coming in with fear, so much fear of the chemotherapy and radiation that it's completely denied. And I still practice both. I do complementary and Western medicine, and I think that there is, not for everyone necessarily, but there's the possibility for synergistic work when you work together. In other words, that we should not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And that medicine's there for a reason. It's still consciousness. It's still come from the light, so you can't deny it. And so yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's just it's just giving people more alternatives and more information around it. But my job as my work and what I do is I'm all about the emotional body and the soul contract.
mm,
So for me, I would say, well, this is why you've got it. This is probably rooted in your ancestral energy. So maybe we look at this, and then there's ways we can, start to shift that frequency.
yeah,
So, and then you would complement, yes, definitely with Western medicine for sure. And people need that as well. So I say people, pharmaceutical. A lot of people sort of, I don't really want to take pharmaceutical drugs. I'll say in the interim, they can actually really help. You don't want to stay on them forever.
right.
You want to try and get off them, but it's there as well, because
It's a
it's
tool.
very polarized with the medicine, isn't it?
It
One
is,
attacks the
yeah,
other as well. This war's been
yeah,
going on for a long time.
yeah, yeah. But they can be tools. They can be tools, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
Don't shut anything out. Absolutely,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, and I'd like to also just talk about how, because so many people are going through illnesses, really serious illnesses, through this time, and it's not that it's been all of a sudden. This has been something creeping in over the past 100+ years of more and more chronic disease, but it feels like it's
Absolutely.
definitely accelerated.
Yeah, I
And
feel so.
now, even children, like I think in the United States, like 1/3 of children have a chronic disease already by the time they're entering their teenage years. And that's
Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
appalling. It
Yeah,
is. It
that is
is.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how is that level of illness in your perspective, or we can also approach it a different way, but how is that affecting or being affected by the changes in consciousness that we're undergoing?
So basically, there's a few things. I'm just going to speak from what Spirit have told me. All right, because obviously I trust that information now. So there's a few things. You've got, from a multidimensional perspective, we are multidimensional beings. We're having a physical experience. Many people in this field know that. So what's happening now, because the veil is lifting and we're moving into new consciousness, back in our light cycles, we'll be in contact consciously with aspects of our own being. So what's happening now, those aspects are trying to merge with us. So you're seeing, and Spirit said this Aman Min said this as well, the lady that channels, very clearly, that the DNA comes across. What it does is it tries to merge with the infant when they're born. And what's happening, the body rejects that DNA as a foreign entity. Well, actually, what it is its own consciousness, because the DNA hasn't been switched on to multidimensionality. And this is where we go into the alignment modality. We work with the brain waves to actually
Hmm.
change all this. I'll talk about that later. And basically what's happening is it's rejecting it, and it's causing ailments in the body. It's causing disease and illness. Now, you've also got the vaccines. They've mentioned very much about the vaccines. They will trigger things as well, 100%. So that's another conversation. Then you've got the ancestral energy that's trying to push through the infant, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beings, but behind all human beings, that are
Hmm.
stuck and trying to move on. So
Right.
all that energy, and this has really been ramped up in the last couple of years, is trying to push through. And what it's doing is, because it's not acknowledged, because we're still in a very draconian mindset around healing and knowledge, that it's manifesting in the physical body. So two things can happen. You can feel the emotion first. If you do that, you're very lucky, because then you have the chance to work on it. It doesn't need to manifest physically. But what we're finding now, because of misinformation around health and consciousness, the body has to bring it into fruition, so the person can feel it and experience it, and then you work on the emotional energy behind that. But ultimately, because we're not informed, and even dyslexia now, and things like that. A friend of mine just did a documentary, and there's apparently 103,000 children just alone in England every year getting diagnosed and untreated, and it's causing huge issues through education, and then that's triggering health problems in the body because they're getting depressed, and this is what's
Yeah.
adding to mental health illness at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's a huge topic, and yeah, so there's a few things to look at from that perspective. Yeah, 100%. But definitely consciousness energy unacknowledged will generally manifest as a physical illness or ailment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so you're, just so if I can understand, you mentioned that the DNA of the new consciousness is trying to come into alignment with that of the infant, or at the time of birth. Is that?
Yeah, that's what's happening. This is what's triggering a lot of the birth defects. So it's your own it's your own consciousness, as we're many aspects of ourselves, but
Yeah.
because it exists in a different realm, it doesn't understand this because the veil is not thin enough yet for it to pick up the frequency. So the body rejects it. And also, you want to go deeper into this conversation. There are many things around. So we say when you come into a human body, that would block. We call it blocking stellar awareness. So, and if that block is there, you're not going to recognize it, so it's going to reject it. So the body will reject it. But ironically, it is your own self. That's what's ridiculous about it. But because the consciousness in the body and the cellular information is still stuck in the old earth, but that's changing. I think we'll find a change in that in the next 10 to 15 years. I think that will change a lot.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on how we evolve ourselves as a species. Because if we continue to sort of listen to misinformation and allow ourselves to be polarized in that information, oscillation can't swing. Now, this is what causes illness and disease: is you get unilateral hold. Well, this is from our perspective. Unilateral hold in the cells. Light can't ground because there's no oscillation to ground it. And then everything swings in oscillation. The whole universe swings in oscillation, allows particles, protons to move. It's the same as the wave and the shore. So this happens in our bodies. It happens in our cells. So misinformation is unilateral, and so you can't move. So the conscious can't shift. So a lot of our work now is really we're actually working a lot more with the mind and belief systems now, because they told me 10 years ago, just get rid of belief systems, you clear the emotional charge, then the belief system will fall away. And this is why New Year's resolutions never work, because you're not going to the root cause of the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And the mind is fickle and it's conditioned. Of course, it's going to change its mind.
Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting topic we can talk about for different ways, but yeah, from our perspective, it's getting consciousness to ground into the body uninterrupted. So we are magnets for this energy. Consciousness moving through us all the time. We're finding now, especially again with prostate cancer and heart attacks and strokes, which are huge again, is the energy is not moving through the body. It's getting clogged in the base chakra. Now the base chakra is the physical chakra, so this is where we hold all our stress, our trauma around money and physical. So anytime they create a war, a fuel crisis, a food crisis, you polarize straight into your base chakra.
Right.
When you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about self-inquiry. What happens is that gets clogged. So then the energy hits the base chakra and then shoots straight up into the heart. And this is why you have these healthy people just dropping dead with heart attacks. But it's consciousness. It's come through so much that it's just hit, poof, and it just explodes the heart. And obviously, again, this is from our perspective, energetic. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that we're not aware of. And the good thing is that we are the creators of our own success and our own misery. We blame others, we judge, we say no, you are creating in the moment. We are like, you create everything. So if someone abuses you, you've asked them on the soul level to abuse you, because otherwise you wouldn't be aware that you have an abusive wound to transform in yourself. And it's the same as abandonment or betrayal. So instead of blaming the other person, get inquisitive. As Einstein said, it's inquisitiveness that breaks the state of logical thinking, allowing you to access higher consciousness. And that's when you go, okay, hang on, maybe there's something in me that's doing this. And as soon as you realize that, it's very, very powerful. Because if people knew that they had the power to change their issues, not relying on doctors or information from others or other people, you had it in your heart, you believed it, you would transform yourself very, very quickly. And Bruce Lipton did great trials on that, where he took his whole team down to, I think it was in the Midwest, and there's a group of evangelistics, and they believed so much in God that would save them. They were drinking rat poison and having rattlesnakes bite. Did you see that video?
Yeah.
That was amazing, wasn't it? I don't know. I mentioned it because a lot of people haven't seen it, which blows me away. But yeah, I'm glad you've seen it. That's good. Yeah, that was, and there's just
Or
that
the
power of belief.
strychnine, right? The strychnine drinkers also, they don't get poisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's hardcore belief, but that's where you can get to. That's the power that we have,
Yeah,
so it's yeah. But that, when I really understood that I'm creating my own misery and my own success, there's something that switches in you, and you go, hang on, and it really takes all the stress away. You're still going to have human stress because we're in a polarized, and it's very polarized on this planet. You're always going to, even if you work on yourself, you're still going to get pulled into collective consciousness. So you're going to pick up on people's energies and flow. So you always really have to stay grounded every day. But ultimately, you have that power to really transform yourself through your own mindset.
yeah,
But you really have to be connected to your soul. And this is the first thing that we teach is soul connections first. Because if that's not connected and you don't trust that energy, then you're at the whim of everything else. So
yeah.
yeah, 100%.
Wow. Yeah. One thing that you said that I absolutely love is the inquisitiveness, to get really curious about why you keep on repeating a pattern or why something is always happening to you, right? Like it's a great way to go about finding the root cause when you
Yeah,
ask why,
yeah,
rather than getting into the victim consciousness of like, oh, so and so did this to me, and that's
yes,
certainly something that I think is part of the human evolution right now, the evolution of consciousness right now, as yeah, the Gene Keys author, now I forget, what's his name?
I know
I
about it, but I
forget his
don't know
name.
the author's name. Yeah, sorry, yeah, you got me as well.
Yeah, anyway, I think it's the gene key 55, which has to do with that victim consciousness that has to get the transmutation or the mutation of of that will allow
Yeah,
us to come out of this blaming and polarization where we are always looking to get back at the other and can't come to peace basically because you
yeah,
always feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
that tension between the yeah, the victim and the aggressor, the yeah. And
yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, no, please, yeah, continue. Sorry, yeah. I just,
yeah, no,
like I said, it's ironic, isn't it? Yeah, go on.
I experienced that very early on in my life, in my 20s, and I had actually a past life regression that helped me recognize this polarity,
Oh,
playing both roles and being like, "Do you want to keep doing that?" I'm like, "Nope, nope, I don't want
no,
to do that
no,
anymore." I'm
no,
done with
exactly.
that. Like,
Yeah,
okay, no more victim consciousness. It was really,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
know they're talking a lot about victim spirit at the moment. They really have to process it. Sorry, yeah, go on.
well, I wanted to ask you about because you mentioned in your webpage a little bit about your alignment modality and the different ways that you go
Yes.
about with helping people. You said connect with their soul, but it's like and really their soul development. So, do you want to just touch on like the different ways? Because past life, I think, is one of the ways, if I understood correctly.
Yeah. So, talk about the modality. You mean as a whole? Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, connecting with again, Spirit have been very clear. They said, look, it's not about ascension. It's not about going anywhere. You're already everywhere. You're multidimensional. It's impossible. You're everywhere. Consciousness is everywhere. So what they're saying is that you need to be grounded. You need to be human. Stop running away. Stop trying to get off the planet and actually ground and be human and allow the soul to awaken around you consciously. So it takes on a whole different frequency. And to be honest, a lot of especially now because it's evolving modality, so I change things as well, and it's really getting that misinformation out of the New Age movement because there's a lot of people following the old Earth mentality. We all went through it. I went through it 20 years ago. You aspects of it. It's fine, but they're trying to simplify healing now because they said human beings are exhausted and they do not need another full set of rules and procedures to awaken themselves. They need
Hmm.
quick fixes, quick alignment. This is how you do it. So what they've done is they've married the spiritual and the scientific. Sorry. So I put in my book. I've got Einstein's work. I've got Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Emoto. The three of those together basically can hold the space and bridge it quite through their experiments, through their work, and through their understanding. And so we bring that in and we reintroduce the imagination because that's the most powerful tool. So we don't want to get rid of the ego mind because everyone talks about clearing the ego mind, getting rid of the ego
Hmm.
mind. And it's really about trying to find a place where the ego is accepted with love and it takes a step back. And then what you do is the soul then initiates the energy, and then the mind goes, okay, that's what I need to do. So we're trying to reverse the process. So you're not coming from your conditioning, from your programming, from your ancestral and your childhood trauma, and of course past lives, because we're not really creating anything new in this life. We're actually resolving past lives.
Right.
This is a resolution lifetime. Resolve and transform. So I mean, I could talk for about it. It's basically a 4-part modality, so each one leads to the next. We generally have about 3 to 4 months integration between each period, and so really the first one is about getting the right information there, talking about the ego mind, the conscious mind. We do a lot of activations like you would do in, say, Reiki, for example. Not the same, but activational process. Then we have a full set of symbols that we give out that are really powerful, that help. And then there's information, and we do a lot of activation. We take people on a sort of, like you would say, a shamanic journey through their subconscious, through their heart. We get them to start introducing them to their inner self or their soul or higher self. That's really around module 1. Module 2 more, it goes into the sort of shadow work. So it's not so much when people talk about shadow work, we talk about our shadow suppressed energies, our traumas, our anger, our frustration, our fear. Yes, that's part of that. But there's also shadow work that's been placed in us through imagination, through coding, through religion, through other aspects of consciousness. So we start to look at that, and we have a few activists, spirit come in, and they start to remove things. They take away the imprints. And that's really good, because that starts to free the person's consciousness, and they start to expand. Then module 3, it's really about an introduction to spirit. Then we start to work at the cellular atomic level, where they start to come in and change the frequency around the atom in our body and the molecule structure. Again, spirit do all this. What that does is it allows the cells to hold more light. And we also, what they do is they bridge the 2 brain hemispheres. So when they did the autopsy on Einstein, he had 1 hemisphere. And spirit said the next 200 years we'll all have that again. Because what's happening now, we don't need to live in that polarization anymore. The division between the masculine and feminine is coming together again. So what's happening is when these 2 energetically align, it creates a magnet or force field, and that draws in divine current uninterrupted through the conditioning of the mindset, the dogma, the conditioning, and we are programmed not to listen to that consciousness. And so what that does is that starts to expand people's awareness. Now it's subjective. Once you get to module 3, it's very subjective. People, and what it'll do is it's going to trigger a lot of past life trauma as well. So we take people through that process. We give them a full set of rules and procedures to transform it very quickly. So we bridge science with the spiritual, and that helps people, because you still get a lot of people going, well, this all sounds a bit too hippie for me, or I don't really get it, or it sounds like a load of rubbish, So but those are the people that we have to help the most. So we try to really give them that sort of understanding from a science perspective. And everyone can trust their imagination. Kids, we play with our imagination all the time. We know that it's something that we forget. And again, Einstein's teaching, imagination's what's got all my answers. That's how I drew the answers through. So and so we really start to bring all of that old techniques that we've had that we've forgotten, we bring those in. And then module 4 is really your own unique marriage and union with the non-physical. That is subjective. And they said you can't even write that, because if you write that, people will polarize and have an expectation of what to expect. So they said, do not write anything about module 4, just say this. That's interesting.
That's good.
Because the mind will attach.
Absolutely. And then be disappointed when it didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen.
Exactly. Because when you're the channeler, that you have no control over it, because when you're at that level, that's your unique marriage and union with the non-physical while you're on this planet. That's very personal to you. So, obviously we can guide that and bring things in, but ultimately it's your own personal experience. So it's don't have any expectations.
Wow,
Totally.
There's so much that I resonate with what you just said about the entire modality, and what spirit. What was the name of you said there's on your website? You said the
Viridians, yeah.
The
so
Viridians.
that's my sort of soul group, shall I say, that I'm connected
okay.
with.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Makes sense.
so they're more of a masculine frequency than the Algorians from the Star of Al Gore. They've come through. They come through in the house quite often, and they're sort of the feminine, but they represent the old feminine rage.
I was going to say Al Gore has a very bad reputation, which I think is, of course, inverted.
Yeah, it's Medusa. So it's their
Yeah,
energy. So it
yeah.
comes through. So, which was interesting. And when they first came through, a lot of my clients, especially women, were coming, and this rage was coming through them, like the suppression that they've experienced from the masculine energy. And I was like, okay, well, now I know why they're here. But and they say it's the Lilith energy. So, but they are great to work with because they're a powerhouse. And
Okay.
and Spirit said to me, they said, this is the funny thing. They said, when the feminine energy is in full rage, there's nothing more powerful than the feminine rage energy. He said it's so powerful, like it's because feminine energy is creative energy, it comes from the black hole. Of course, it's the most powerful energy. And so it's a very, and that's why they shut it all down. Is 666 is the element of carbon. Carbon's the God particle. 13 is the feminine number. It's not unlucky, it's actually divine.
I know.
Both numbers are divine.
We're
It's just crazy, isn't
you're
it? So
speaking my language.
yeah, there you go. Oh, of
Like
course you do. Inside.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion as well.
Yeah. But
Oh, amazing.
yeah, getting back to the creativity and the imagination, and that's something that I go back to Steiner all the time because I've studied him, and
Yeah.
but it's 120 years ago, and he was already saying all of this, and of course this is all ancient stuff.
Mm,
The power of imagination, that's like we have been so dumbed down from that perspective, especially getting kids into school really early and getting them to try to read and do math from a very early age, which is totally destructive to that right brain, imagination, flow way of thinking and being.
very
I
much
was,
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was appalled. My nephew had to go into school in France that's required as of 3 years of age. Three
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
age.
Three
And they
years old.
already started doing like, tracing letters, and he was able to do his letters from a very young age. I was like, okay, that's cool that he could learn it, but at the same time, like, it's not necessary. What are we
No, it's
doing?
not
We need to
necessary.
keep
Exactly.
the imagination and yeah, and play. And it's something that now I'm like midlife, and I'm like going back to because I went into the science track so strongly,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
it was with actually studying anthroposophic medicine, which came at. I think you're into astrology too. This all started happening after the Uranus square, not square, opposition. Yeah, like
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
basically your
It's
midlife crisis type of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I started like rediscovering art and singing. I remember like singing as a kid at home. It's like, I'm just gonna start singing. Well, that all evolved into eventually even having light language, just from all the toning and all of the meditation and everything that I was doing. It's like,
Yeah.
this is all available, all possible for us. And yeah, there's so much that we need to not so much undo, but reintegrate, like you said, the reunion of the masculine and feminine to really be coming back to that unity so that we can receive our full consciousness in this body, in this vehicle, and not,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And I think it's so important, like you said, you've gone down the science, but to have have the spiritual as well. My, I just pray for the day when scientists can embody that as well. And so you're a great gift on the planet that you can have both, because if you marry those two, it answers all questions. It's where one's divided, they go hand in hand. There shouldn't be a separation,
yeah,
and I feel that that's really important. So, and I think it's changing. We're evolving now. The quantum physics field is coming in. It's sort of explaining a few things, and there's still a long way to go in sort of getting the message across. But it's starting to come through, which is fantastic. Explains a lot of things about the universal consciousness anyway, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you want to talk a little bit about this new Earth frequency? Like, what is your perspective on this shift that we're going through? What has Spirit told you about it? And have they given you a timeline? I know there are a lot of timelines out there, but most of them seem to converge around a magical number coming up not so far away.
Yeah, yeah. No, they don't really sometimes they mention timelines, but what they've mentioned is, you know, we are going backwards in some ways. So we really do have to get in alignment with our inner selves. So this is really about you change yourself, that changes the planet. Because your frequency, if you work on yourself, when you go down the street, go into the restaurant, you're going to sit next to people and the cells talk to cells. So they're going to go, oh, hang on, your frequency is changing. I want some of that. And then that cellular information gets passed. Then they start to have synchronistic moments like, oh, there's a healing course I can go and do, or actually, I feel I need to do this. And that's how it works. That's how you change the planet. So that's the thing that's happening at the cellular level. And Spirit been very, very clear about that. Work on yourself. You're healing the planet 100%. But what's going on as well is why we've got so much earth trauma going on at the moment, obviously war, and then apparently there's going to be a lot more natural disasters coming up in the this year, next couple of years. And that's obviously, from our perspective, it's the earth's emotional body releasing herself. As far as I'm aware, the earth is shifting. We're guests on this planet, so we need to move as well. Also, the denied, repressed trauma or the unilateral hold of masculine energy has to come into alignment with the feminine. So 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, no, sorry, 2.5 years ago, because we're in a third year of the trilogy of the feminine energy rebirthing itself. It's about bringing the frequency of alignment. So this is why the cancer rates, because people are so unilaterally polarized, as I was talking about before, and you have to get these male and female energies in alignment. So that's really what's going on from an energetic perspective, is the masculine energy is there to surrender to that will of that feminine energy, and that starts within our own bodies. So that's what's happening at the moment. It's just what's obviously triggering a lot of the disease and illness. But on the planet, you're seeing the chaos is the eruption. So they say that there's always chaos before the rebirth. We have to go through that dark energy. We have to shift it. But we have to also love that energy, because that is what we came here. We agreed to come here, lose ourselves, to then find ourselves. It's the gift of separation. Now, when you are separate from your light, you are going to go into dark spaces. And this is what that energy really is. And it's represented through this war, through this trauma and this pain. And because we've abused the feminine energy and we've abused the planet for so long, that frequency is now coming back to us. So it's really what we've created in ourselves, and now we're feeling it. But instead of, I suppose, we have two timelines in some ways, and we could destroy ourselves again 100%. Of course we could. The science is there as well for that. But ultimately, the planet is going to evolve this time. It doesn't want to go back, drop its consciousness again. Again, this is what Spirit have told me. So really, this is a great time. If you can feel underneath the chaos, you will feel the excitement and the joy of what we're moving into. Now, that is the gift of being able, but the only way you're going to feel that is if you work on yourself. Lighten your emotional body, heal your ancestral line, and wake up to, you are not a physical being. You're just having an experience here. And if you can accept that, then everything changes. So it's like, yeah. But it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to. Most people don't want to go into the emotion. It's scary. It's really scary. And I've been there sometimes, out of breath, like freaking out, and oh my God, Jesus Christ, the world's going to end, and it's that feeling. And so it's tumultuous, and people don't want to feel that. They don't want to navigate that, and they try to retrofit their story and, I'll be okay. You just need to feel it. If you have a way of understanding that it's there, that the emotions aren't there to hurt you, they're actually a gift. And actually, by feeling them is your chance to let go of them.
Yeah.
So, and we're trained the other way. Just push it down. Don't worry about the emotion. You'll pass, and that has been some of the most destructive talk that we've given ourselves, especially for men. Men have been taught to shove that all down, to go to war, to fight, and it's a huge thing. And obviously shutting down the heart chakra has been the worst thing for human beings, because spirit can't merge, or your higher self can't fully merge with your body unless your heart is open. But the first doorway into that opening is connection to your soul, and just allowing it to be there. Now, the difference is that when you wake up in the morning and you surrender the day to the soul and say, you tell me what to do today, you inspire me, instead of going what your mind has told you to do, then things will start to shift, and the synchronicity will unfold. And you've just got to listen. You've got to be we don't like to use the word patient, because patient means you're waiting for something.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to be excited about feeling something different within yourself. And also, like they say, hit rock bottom is the best place. I'm sick and tired of being annoyed. I'm sick and tired of not knowing. And you use that frustration, send it out to the universe, because if you say something with gusto and flair,
Yeah.
it will heed the call. You will get an answer 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. You just gotta get annoyed, really. Use the anger to change the frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're all feeling it. We're all feeling it. Oh my God, we're all feeling it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I experienced a little bit of that feminine rage the other day.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
How did you deal with it?
I took action.
Yeah, well done.
So I needed to do what I needed to do.
You've got to do it. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
but
it's really important to get that throat chakra. It's funny, again, for about 10 years ago, it must have been at least 2 years, I was just getting women with thyroid issues. Now, it got to the point where after a few months, I said, I don't even need to do a consultation. I'm going to tell you why you've got that. And I'll tell you, and it'd be like, oh, yeah, it was my father. It was my husband. It's the past life. And it's the same story. It's the suppression of that voice, and it's affected women's thyroids. And I think this is a huge thing that we don't talk about a lot either. But this being able to voice, feeling safe to say what you need to feel. And funny enough, about 80% of my clients are women anyway, so I'm very much about empowering the feminine. So I naturally evolved to that anyway. But it's incredible how that suppression will then, and this is what we're talking about. It will manifest in the physical body. So just put your hand up now and ask the question: what do I need to see in myself? Because as soon as you do that, the soul's gonna magnetize you very, very quickly, because we are in that era of shifting all of this old energy. So we just need to put our hands up and go, right, okay, I'm ready. And everything will just start to unfold.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah.
In my meditative practice, my way of doing it, just say I invite in more of my higher self, and I release all that does not serve. And just in this allowing, things happen.
Exactly, because you're giving space for it.
Right.
Exactly. And intention moves mountains, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, I may not have chosen it that way, but I said I allow. So it's like, okay.
Yeah. I'm constantly surprised by how the soul does things, like, and you have this mindset of, it's going to go this way, and they could do it completely different. It's like, oh, okay, then.
Yeah.
Or even like thinking now.
Getting messages, like I like to work with oracle cards as well, and I'll interpret a message one way, and I've got my pendulum too to ask further questions, and I was like, okay, I got it clear. I know what I got to do. And then it's like, nope, it was not 180 degrees, but it was like different. It's like it was going in this direction that I was expecting, but it wasn't quite that way. It was just a little different.
Just a little different. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, totally resonate with that.
Yeah, and I think to myself, and it's typical, of course, whenever we try to predict anything, right? There's so many possibilities, and it all depends on what decisions that you're taking and what decisions everybody else is taking that are going to be influencing your own unfoldment. Yeah.
But absolutely, yeah.
So. But in the grander scheme of like the whole earth, it's really, it's a lot, what we're going through. I also feel like a great, elevation in consciousness, because I've felt it in my life personally. I've felt it in people around me, and the conversation has shifted so much. I remember when I started waking, I'll say my second awakening, because my first one was in my 20s, and then I sort of like put it down because it wasn't popular to talk about. So I could say that I did yoga. That was all right.
That's cool. Yeah, you could get away with yoga.
I do yoga. I couldn't really say that I meditated, because that was like.
Definitely. Yeah.
But then I would. Probably around 9 years ago or something like this, it was like sort of a second wave. And then initially, I realized, oh wow, look, there's a lot more. I opened my eyes to what was going on from like podcasts and books and all of this stuff. So much had come out in the meantime. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot more people talking about this. This is cool.
Yeah,
And it's just
100%.
exploded ever since then.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think, YouTube and all these media podcasts have really helped to open up, oh, give a voice to people who have been experiencing things, and teaching and all of, yeah, so much availability of information. But now we
yeah,
get into this issue of misinformation as well, because it was very confusing at the beginning when I was, reawakening, so to speak.
yeah, yeah,
And I had like just a plethora of material that you could look into, and things didn't make sense. Like, one would say this, the other one would contradict it, and who's right, and is there a right, and yeah. And so
yeah.
now I'd like to ask you, from the information that you've gotten from Spirit, what is like the biggest misinformation out there in the spirituality realm? Like, say New Age, because I know that's been quite, you know, interfered with, shall we say?
Yeah. What the biggest one? Oh my God, there's so many. I'm just trying to think of it's like,
Let's say
uh,
one that would be like, that would result in a big distraction for people.
big distraction for people. Well, they said definitely don't polarize yourself into conspiracy theories. They said yes, but that's the deep state trying to pull light people away. So stay out of that. Yes, they're real. He said 99% of them are real, 100%. But don't polarize yourself, because
Right.
what it does is it brings you out of the present moment. And it can create fear because you're aware that these things can happen, where a lot of people don't even believe it, so it's not even in their consciousness. So that's one thing. They've also said stay out of this ascension 5D that everyone's talking about, because that again is what's actually taking you away from your own consciousness. Like you said, you've got to ground, you
Mm-hmm.
put your feet on the grass, you've got to walk on the sand, you've got to be in nature, and you've got to allow that soul energy to move around you. That's really important, because it's crazy at the moment. Everyone's going on about ascension and 5D. So that is a massive distraction. So that's missing. Again, it's not misguided misinformation. I think it just comes from New Earth. And I don't think there's a lot of wrong intent. I think there is some malice in there, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But also the other thing is that you're the creator and manifest your own reality. That's the biggest thing. Because the biggest thing that's been sold to us is God will save us. That
Mm-hmm.
some entity, whether that's a politician, a religious leader, or God himself or herself, whatever, is going to save us. As soon as you do that, you give your energy away and you're a pawn. This is why they built churches on ley lines, because as soon as you walk into the church, the intention in the church is very powerful. It strips your energy. So you give your power away as soon as you walk in. Now, look, there's positives and negatives for that. And religion's been great because it's really helped people. And I feel, there's a few really good spiritual leaders talking about this now, where not going to get rid of the church per se, because they've got so much following. The church already understand the esoteric. They just don't talk about it. If you went
Mm-hmm.
into the Vatican, I mean, Jesus Christ, you'd
Yeah.
see everything there. So
Yeah.
they know. They know. So there's not the church is wrong per se, but it's giving your power away to something outside of you. We talk about religion because it's so big on the planet, and we've been doing that for thousands of years. But today we're giving it to tech companies, we're giving it to politicians still, or whoever, and ultimately know that you can find your own answers. So the biggest thing is relying on outside help. That's great for a while, but ultimately, Spirit have been very, very clear. Understand you're creating your own reality in the moment. It's how you think. So if you think you need some help, that's okay, but find your own answers, because ultimately, when we keep giving our energy away, we're not evolving. We're
Mm-hmm.
not evolving. And then, there's a lot of talks around who are the new leaders at the moment. And there's all this conscious around AI and these tech companies, and how
Mm.
they're navigating our consciousness.
Yeah.
So we're putting a lot into that as well. So are they ethically in alignment? And these are the questions.
Mm.
So we're always going to give our energy away, and so ultimately that would be the thing where and I said this, and I do upgrades every 3 months now with a lot of people. And Spirit said, even up to July, this was 3 months ago, just for these next couple of months, just sort of ground, less is more. Just try and stay off the phone as much as possible, and just allow the consciousness on the planet and what's also coming onto the planet just to start to align you with this new information. Because we're working a lot with Mercury at the moment, the planet Mercury, because Mercury brings the mental energy. So what if you work with Mercury at the moment, you can actually bring your higher mind into your lower mind and start to bridge the two, meaning you're taking on higher spiritual consciousness and belief systems rather than the fickle human conditioning. That in itself is very powerful, because ultimately you're already powerful, you're already brilliant, you're just conditioned not to feel it. So when you already know that you're perfect already, there is nothing to strive for, because inadequacy is the biggest thing that's plaguing humanity at the moment. Because in this comparison, it's again a massive conversation. So I think the misinformation is really the main thing is to just trust that you are the creator of your own reality and you have the power to change it. That hasn't been taught to us, and also understanding a little bit about the science of understanding how cellular information works, and how that affects your body and the stream of consciousness, how it moves through your body. I think again, there's so many things, but ultimately I think it's around how you navigate through this chaos period, and that is being grounded. It is just being calm, trusting that the emotions are not there. Just work with the emotions, because if you say to your soul, I'm ready to do this now, you're going to wake up the next day, maybe a few days later, with a lot of fear or a lot of anger or a lot of sadness. You've asked for that, but that's what's been denied and repressed in you. So working with that emotional energy in that moment, and using a certain laws of observation, then that divine current can move into that space and create the oscillation that we were talking about. And basically, the universal consciousness will do the rest. You just give the intention, you set the space, and you breathe through it. And that's all you need to do. And ultimately, you are going to heal loads of people by doing that. Because like I said, when you walk down the street, you're going to change their vibration. You're going to heal your ancestral line as well. Because the ancestral line is what's causing a lot of the disease and illness as well. That's another conversation that's not talked about.
I think we could probably fill up another couple of hours easily on these topics. Yeah.
100%.
Feeling the emotions, that's something, it's like you said, it's for some reason we've been conditioned to be scared of it. But I'll be honest, this morning, I don't know why, like this song came into my head. Remember the musical Rent?
Oh, vaguely.
Rent, the musical from the 90s, I think.
Okay, I remember it sounds familiar, but I don't remember it per se. But
anyway, there's a song, Seasons of Love, and I just started singing in my head, and I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to play it on my phone. And I just started to cry. I'm like, wow, I need to cry. I needed to feel that. And then my partner was like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's just so much, but I just need to let it out. It's like Spirit just put this song in my memory, right? Because when was the last time I heard that song? Total like out of nowhere. I'm like, okay.
And what a beautiful way. Now. Yeah, and that is a great thing, because Spirit will use whatever conduit they can to get your attention to something. And water, crying is brilliant, because water carries the consciousness trauma through the body. It's the meridian system. So when we work with the meridian system, which is basically the blueprint of the physical body, and they actually imprint the chakras. A lot of people talk about the chakras. Actually, the meridians is where all the dysfunction and light sits. So, the meridians have to be free flowing. So the water is very, very good for that. So just crying alone shifts the emotion. We know that on a normal conscious level, but actually on an energetic level, water's fantastic for removing emotional energy. So it's so it's good. So anytime you do healing work, just drink a gallon of water, because it just flushes out your body.
I totally do that. Wow. Well, what a great conversation this has been. Such a pleasure, and so far-ranging. I really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared. What else would you like to share with the audience about your healing modality, your website, all that stuff, so that people can follow up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the W's, alignmentmodality.com. All the information's on there. I've got my e-learning courses, the upgrades. I also do 10-week healing packages that are bespoke for one-to-one. And then the alignment modality, I run a couple of through the year. And it's 4 parts, like I said. So your journey, if you come on that, is going to be about 18 months in general. And there's a lot of support around that. There's great community. Generally, a lot of the groups get together on WhatsApp and they join and they support each other. So it's a real, the energy's nice. It's warming, and a lot of people come into that quite easily. And yeah, like I said, I've got e-learning. If you want to download, stuff, you can do it that way as well. But yes, just go on the website. All my contact details are there, and you can see what I'm all about and what I get up to.
Great. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I just want to remind the audience, if you've enjoyed this content today, please subscribe and like the material and share it, because it really helps to get the word out. And until next time, thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.